Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I rip it up, you just got. Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bonnet. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. So this ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.
Hello. I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I'm trying to get my setup together here. One sec. Bring you to me. So today's conversation is going to be a little bit brief. I'm going to try to keep it under an hour because I do have some other engagements that I have to kind of get to. I'm happy that you guys are here. Before we really get into today's topic, don't forget to go ahead and like and share this content really quickly. As you're coming in, let me know that you're in the audience and that you're viewing by saying hello. I do have some production assistance today, so the comments will be going across the screen and things like that as we have this conversation. And so you guys might see a series of comments. You may see your comment pop up while I'm talking, but when I get to your question, it'll come up again so that I can address the question if you have a question, or I'll read the content if it's content that you're, basically commenting on. Excuse me. So, this is Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson, and I'm Dr. Jefferson. And I'm best known for having the conversations that spark a high level of emotionalism in people. And as a result, these are things or content that's oftentimes not navigated at all in Western culture and around the world in general, because typically the elephant in the room gets ignored, even though it's the biggest issue there. So I'm in the process of growing my YouTube channel, and I'll be featuring exclusively on there next month. So be sure to go ahead and follow the link that I've included in the description of this video if you are catching this content in another place other than YouTube. And hit the notification bell after you've subscribed there in the event that I have a show and, I haven't reached out to you or you don't get the notifications on another platform. So I'm super excited about that growth, and I'm super excited about the growth of this channel thus far. I'm almost to 100 subscribers. I think I only need like 2. So go ahead and share or whatever so that I can meet that goal today. And then we'll aim for the goal of 500 subscribers by the end of this month before we move into next month. And I know that's a big goal, right? But I feel like you guys can definitely help me get there. So this is a platform where I encourage people to become the most expressive versions and the best versions of themselves, even if it's not in alignment with what my preferences are or other people's preferences, just so that you can become more authentic in your navigation of your becoming, in your journey of just being an individual in today's life. I am a public speaker and a marriage and family therapist, a psychotherapist who specializes in treating people who suffer with severe mental illnesses, all the way to people that are on the opposite end of the spectrum where the issues are just everyday life stressors. I also provide professional mentor services, training, and coaching around life fulfillment and emotional wellness in general. So my hand is in a lot of different pots and I'm doing a lot of different things at any given time, but I am super excited about bringing you this content that was brought to my attention and asked for me to review it by LinkedIn. So let's talk about this. And you know what? To be honest with you, it's interesting to me that this topic was suggested considering all things that have been going on in the media as of late. We saw, and I did a review on the content that Monique put out about young women in this generation, Gen Z, as they call it. And the way that they regard their appearances when they're outside of their homes or whatever. Specifically, Monique covered the bonnet. So the wearing of bonnets and slippers and sleepwear outside. And there was a lot of interesting feedback on that content. A lot of young people, and when I say young people, I do mean adults. I mean young adults. That's what I'm referring to, up to the adults that are well into their 30s, to be honest with you. But a lot of young people feel like it's an inundated practice to have to get dressed up to go somewhere if you're not like doing anything special. There's no special occasion. But I kind of want to talk about how that's on a continuum. So they asked me to talk about whether or not visible tattoos are appropriate for professional workplaces. In our culture, we have a strong presence when it comes to resistance. In general, we resist anything that is not in accordance with freedom of expression. And like I mentioned when I was telling you guys about that whole spiel about my purpose on this platform and things like that, I'm 100% for people being authentically themselves, being the best version of themselves that they can be as they become whatever they're becoming. However, I gotta admit, there are some basic standards of presentation that I think we should be following, right? As we're navigating this journey of life on this continuum. I think that your physical appearance has a lot to do with the way that the world receives you on the outside. We've talked about Kevin Samuels and the way that he presents his content and the way that he's very harsh, with individuals, not even just women. But he also is pretty harsh in the way that he critiques men in the Black community. And the reason that I am speaking about the Black community, because this is a more prevalent issue in our community and the way that we relate to what we should or shouldn't be doing when we leave our homes. And, you know, Black people and people of African descent in general have a long lived history of physical presentation, right? And honor that's associated with that physical presentation of self, whether you're at home, at a special event, at the grocery store, outside of your home, interacting with friends at their homes or whatever. And so, in saying that, even though a lot of young people feel like they don't have to get dressed up or they don't have to wear anything special, and to be honest with you, you got a lot of folks who believe they don't even need a resume when they go to a job right now in our community. But even though a lot of young people feel like they shouldn't have to get dressed up and do all these things if they're going after a career or a job that is meant for them. When we think about the people that we have interactions with on a day-to-day, I think that we have to be honest with ourselves and say that, you know, when people look a certain way, we're not willing to approach them and give them our business. I think that we have to be honest with ourselves and say that there are some looks in society that are a contraindicator of us approaching people and navigating life with them in any way. So when Kevin Samuels says, what's your dress size? And he's sizing women up and things like that. I think that what he's really trying to do, like one of the viewers was saying the other day, he's trying to force some realities on people as far as like what their expectations are and what their physical presentation may say about their real intent, true intent, or their propensity to move into these spaces where they say they're trying to accomplish XYZ. Now, what I do and what I will say is that his physical presentation when he comes on the screen is always very much put together, right? And there is a reason for that. And I know a lot of you may not even think that that is a valuable component of as to why it is that you follow Kevin Samuels or other people that you know follow Kevin Samuels, but it is. His presentation is what brings you in. Because you're either going to have a negative connotation inside of your mind associated with the way he looks, or you're going to have a very positive one. You're going to be drawn to him because you want to be that kind of person. And even though a lot of people, you know, make little jokes and things like that about what he wears or how he dresses, and a lot of times he's been in recent content creators content, you know, people have said that he is into men and things like that, and that's the reason he dresses like he does. The reality is he's a very clean presented man, okay, well physically presented. So it doesn't matter whether his messages are harsh or whatever, but I think that that piece right there, if you are a follower of him and you are a male or a female and you're calling into his show, you are a part of the Gen Z generation and millennial generation who are following this guy. So it makes sense that you yourself would encompass some level of value around your physical presentation. And so when we think about the idea of tattoos being appropriate for the workplace, the one thing that comes to mind for me when they asked me to do this is I was like, well, had lots of people in therapy, you know, who had tattoos and things like that. I myself have a ton of tattoos, okay? Now, a lot of people don't know that. They don't, because you can't look at me when I'm seeing patients. You can't look at me when I'm out in the environment even and tell that I have these tattoos. Now, every once in a while, if the camera is low enough, hold on, let me adjust this a little bit. Okay. All right. So every once in a while, when the camera is low enough, you can see or you can tell that there must be something somewhere up here. But depending on what I have on, some people would never know I have even a single tattoo, unless they're really paying attention, because I think I have one like right here, right? There's one right here. So as I'm doing this content, don't think that I'm anti-tattoo, because that's not the case. When I talk about the way that you present yourself in different settings, I'm talking about the importance of understanding that there are different parts of you that present in different scenarios and different behaviors in you that present in different scenarios that are appropriate for the time and space that you're in those particular engaging those people or whatever, how you're doing that. So professionalism in general. If I am a tattoo artist, right, and I'm going to work, would it make sense that I have visible tattoos? That's my question to you guys. Would that make sense? If I am an attorney and I'm getting ready to go and fight a case in court, would it make sense that I have visible tattoos? Like, when I'm asking the make sense piece, I'm asking, is it essential to what I am about to do, the event that I'm about to engage in? Is that an essential component to me having visible tattoos? And what that really kind of leads to is branding. Okay. You are your brand when you're an employee. You also are your brand when you're an entrepreneur, pursuing independent business, because your physical self is a representation of what the potential is when it comes to people doing business with you. Now, that's not to say that I encourage unfair biases when people are judging, the potential of a person to be professional or be honest or authentic in their business dealings and stuff with them. And just basically judging the book by the cover. But that's a thing that is a part of us connecting with people in general. In our culture, we have an issue with accepting the fact that there is a standard for anything when it comes to us. That's what makes this a very difficult discussion, because the thing is, a lot of these Gen Z girls feel like Monique has no authority to correct them. She should be minding her business. Kevin Samuels has no authority to correct them. He should be minding his business. And nobody has the authority to correct them. The same thing with these young men. I've seen young men go in for interviews and their outer appearance says that they're going perhaps to hang out with their friends. The same thing for young women. So I think you have to ask yourself what makes sense. Why are there uniforms in certain jobs? Like, it boils down to the fact that oftentimes not only the brand of the company is important, but also the brand of the person who is a representation of the company. Some people have not learned the importance of physical presentation when it comes to their interactions with other people in the workplace, and how that's different than your interactions with people in your personal life. But there should always be a standard across the board. The way that I feel, or the way that it resonates with me is, when I've raised my kids, the things that I've talked to them about is that your physical brand is what you step out with every day. You're a representation of not only me, because I'm the person responsible for raising you, right? But also yourself and your propensity to move into certain spaces. And so if you do not value your physical appearance to the way that you move, right? And the way that the world receives you, to the extent of your own standard, right? I'm not telling you guys to go out there and adopt somebody else's standard of presentation, even mine. But you should have your own standard that says, based on this, I am now in a position to where I'm going to work. This is what it looks like when I'm going to work. And this is how I know I was dressed to go to work that day. This is how I know I was dressed to go to the club that day. And the two may be synonymous, and that's rough, but it's reality. But you should have your own standard. And when you are absent of a standard at all, or you feel like you don't need any standard at all, that means you don't have healthy boundaries. We have to have healthy boundaries for our progression in life. If we're going to grow and mature in a space to where we're understanding that our experiences are teaching us and preparing us for the later stages of life as we move into those with other people. And as we tether our energy with other people, we're positioning ourselves in a place of wisdom and insight so that we can relay that information to the people that we're responsible for now, cultivating the lives that we're responsible for cultivating, whether it be our kids or our nieces and nephews or people that we mentor, whatever. You have to hold yourself to some level of a standard. Okay? Because the reality is, when you go out into the world already has a standard for humanity. If you're a citizen of a particular country, you're expected to manage yourself in a certain way, follow certain rules. And so it starts within the component of self. So if you're managing yourself, if you are properly overseeing your own introspect on yourself, right? And how that's setting you up for goals or how it's setting you up for success, then you're doing your due diligence and you're growing in spaces, even if you don't really, give it its due process, and give it credit for what it is, you're still setting yourself up for going forth and being something, whatever that is, whether it's being great or whether it's failing multiple times to figure out what you need to be great or whatever. But you should always have some standard that guides how you present yourself in the outside world. If you have tattoos and you are a tattoo artist, that is a part of your brand. You're a professional artist. Your artistry is reflected on the bodies of people. So you going into the workplace with tattoos that are visible, that makes sense, right? Because if a person comes in and they're like, well, I want a tattoo, right? They want to see what your work looks like, because these are permanent imprints on their body, right? However, if you are an account executive, if you are a financial advisor, if you are a doctor, if you are an attorney, like I mentioned before, and you're going out here and you're about to fight a case, having a visible tattoo is not a part of the brand that you need to be presenting to get the job done, right? So I think that the problem is, this is the problem that I see in our community. We fail to hold ourselves accountable for reasonable standards. We feel like if we have reasonable standards, they must have come from the white man. We feel like if we have reasonable standards, they must have been impressed upon us forcibly by another entity that is not of us. And that's just a fallacy. We have to be big enough. We have to be wise enough. We have to be mature enough to move into a space of accountability. Everybody cannot be an entrepreneur, okay? And even if you are an entrepreneur, everyone cannot go out here with visible tattoos in that space where they are an entrepreneur and present themselves in a way that's not professional and be successful in that presentation and continue to elicit business and customers and make money as a, generate wealth as a result of that. So I think that we have to gauge whether or not it's appropriate in the environment in which we are professionals in order to answer that question, really. I don't think that visible tattoos are professional in certain settings, right? So I think that it really just depends on what you're doing. The other component is this. If we are to say that we are professional in the way that we present ourselves in public, we also have to gauge how we are dressing, what we wear to work, right? What our physical presentation looks like, right? That sort of thing. So you don't want to wear things that's too tight and constricting. You don't want to wear things that are too sexually provocative. And that's kind of subjective. I know that's a very hard one. You don't want to wear things that expose parts of your body that are not meant to be exposed and for the job. Okay. You want to gauge yourself and manage yourself appropriately. That's what it boils down to. Are tattoos appropriate for the workplace? In some settings, I gotta say, it doesn't matter if you're a teleworker, right? What do you call it? Telemarketer. If you go into a telemarketing office, who cares? A lot of times telemarketing offices don't even have a standard for dress code, period. But cover yourself up. But your tattoos won't make or break you because you have zero interaction with outside customers. It's about building over the phone and presenting your best personality so that it can continue to elicit the type of business that business is intending to drive with your outcomes. But if you're a person who has everyday contact with other customers, with other people, then of course you need to manage yourself accordingly. The other component that I wanted to talk about is the fact that there is a lack of accountability in fast food, right? People feel nowadays, in my opinion, that because you are in the fast food industry, that you don't owe people anything. And I don't know why it is. I don't know if it's the pay. I don't know if it's the fact that they feel like this is just a job and I'm just here for a length of time and then I'm getting off. I don't know what it is, but I feel like these young people have lost their respect for other people. As a result, customer service has declined greatly. And not only in fast food, in restaurants too. Waiters and waitresses, they're just not respectful anymore. People in general, in whatever occupation they are in, the vast majority of people just simply don't believe. And back in the day, we had this little saying, it was like the customer is always right. I feel like maybe that's gone out of the door, or out of the window. It flew somewhere, blew away somewhere, but there is no high regard for retaining customers anymore. And we've got to do a better job at gauging the way that we interact with people, because you could be the difference that changes their entire day simply because you had a smile, simply because you greeted them, simply because you welcomed them and you were warm and welcoming in your embrace. Because some people are having a bad day, and doing business, going out and interacting with other people who are responsible for customer service can just change their entire day because it was a positive interaction after having a round of negative things that happened in the day. So we're all systemically connected. And I think that we have to remember that piece in order for us to present and be our best version of ourselves and be professional in whatever occupation that we work in. The other component before I close out is, what advice would you give your younger self? And I want you guys to kind of give me the advice that you would give yourself now. What advice now would you give your younger version of yourself, now that you've grown and matured through spaces and you've had experiences that have yielded a greater level of insight, a greater level of awareness of who and how you operate in life in general? I'm curious as to what you guys have learned and how impactful those lessons have been to the fabric and the core of your being and becoming. I gotta think on it a bit though, like I do. Because it's a lot of them. Thank you, Jazz Winder. I think the greatest piece of advice that I could give my younger self is to be patient, have courage, and to continue to be resilient. Because I think that I've always been like really resilient. I've always been like a sponge for knowledge. I'm all about learning any and everything, having as many experiences as possible, and allowing those experiences to help cultivate me in my journey. But patience is something that I struggled with. My younger version of myself is like, oh, I'm out of here, breaking ties real quick. And even though that led to some great outcomes for me overall, I feel like had I maintained my position and stayed my course in some situations, maybe, just maybe, I would have had an even greater impact on the world around me. Yeah, all of that, because I'm all about outcomes. So, that's all I got. My question for you guys is, what advice would you give your younger self? And be honest. this is a safe space to share. I look forward to having this discussion with you guys. Hopefully this video has resonated with somebody, and hopefully it's done justice for the people at the editors at LinkedIn. Hopefully I've covered this for you guys in its fullest capacity, because essentially, you know, I think it's a really important topic when we talk about physical presentation, professionalism, even if being just having pride in the way that you look in general. I think it's a really great general discussion for the community right now, because I think that we've evolved as a society. People look different. People's perspective of professionalism has definitely shifted. Society has grown into a different space. And there are just so many different layers to this. But I look forward to reading you guys' commentary and getting back to you or whatever. And for those of you who have not already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do that. For those of you who didn't share yet, go ahead and do that. And I look forward to the review. So that's all I've got, you guys. Take care, and please make good choices. Definitely good professional choices. Later days.
Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I'll rip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bunny. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.